Welcome back to the Current Seahawks. I'm your host, Emily Hanlon, and I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest today. His name is Bill DiNome, and he's the Assistant Director for the Student Media Board here at UNCW. The SMB includes organizations such as the campus newspaper, The Seahawk, broadcast media, Teal TV, the creative arts magazine, Atlantis, film production, Flickr, and podcasting, Hawkstream. Coming up, we will get an inside scoop about the ins and outs about these organizations and what it's like working in student media. Now it's time to pass things off to our interviewer, Dylan, and our guest, Bill DiNome.
Thanks, Emily. I'm here with Bill. Bill, thank you for being with us today. We're just going to go into some questions about how you got into the profession and what you do at UNCW.
I often like to say that what I do was the accidental profession.
Okay.
I graduated from undergraduate work with a music major, and I thought I was going to be a great famous musician one day. And I realized I'm probably not the best musician in the world, so it took a few years. I was performing, but then I accidentally fell into book publishing and did that for a number of years, became a freelance writer after that. When I came to Wilmington, I ended up being the first MFA graduate at UNCW because I figured I needed a degree to get a real job. And this position opened up the year after I graduated. And it seemed like it was ready-made for me because I they were looking for a generalist, and I had experience in print publishing, radio, no TV, but a little bit of everything beyond that, journalism and such, advertising copy. Mm-hmm. So I got it. I've been here since Dirt was created.
Gotcha, okay. And how long have you worked at UNCW?
Well, it depends on how you define that, but when I was doing my graduate work, I was a teaching assistant. So. Okay. If you add that, I've been in my current position more than 25 years, so if you add that, it's probably just over 30.
Gotcha, okay. And what do you believe is a highlight of working with students in student media?
Students are crazy. Yeah. In student media, I love it because these are student organizations and they're autonomous. They are largely self-directed. What they publish does not belong to the university. It belongs to them. So it provides a lot of chances to talk about the role of a free press in a free society. We talk about ethics almost every day. And part of it too is that when they make mistakes, it's not my problem. It is my problem. It's not my fault, let's say. But the interaction is really exciting. You know, the students come up with really great ideas. They're so talented, much more talented than I was at that age. So it's really cool to see what's going to come up next because you just never know. You're going to get slapped upside the head when something comes up, and it's always, okay, how do we dance around this? How do we handle it? And sometimes the things are tricky. So, for instance, I was 5 months on the job back in 1998 when the Seahawk was hit with its first threat of a libel suit. And I had never crossed that bridge before. Luckily, I had a really good editor at the Seahawk who today is a journalism professor. He was awesome, and he was only a sophomore. He was really amazing. And together we walked through that, and unscathed, we succeeded in avoiding a lawsuit.
Gotcha.
So that happened the very first year.
And other than that, over the years, are there any other moments that stick with you while working in student media? Any successes or horror stories similar to that?
Yeah, some really good successes. I would say that any time you finish a year without a libel suit, it's a success. But but even in between, there are these sort of momentary successes that build onto others. So every production they do, every issue they publish, whatever it is, they're making mistakes along the way, which is exactly how we learn. So I'm always encouraging them to go ahead and make mistakes. It's a safe place to make mistakes. Just don't make the same ones every time, if you can help it. So there have been stories that have been published. They've won some awards. Just some things that have changed the meaning of things. So, for instance, when they were putting in the new intramural fields where they, play flag football and such. The Seahawk did some research into that, and the original plan was to put in 3 fields of artificial turf, and the Seahawk discovered that if you use this, I think it's called crumbled rubber or something, as the base for the athletes that are playing on the ground a lot, like goalies, there's a 50% chance that they'll develop cancer. So the Seahawk published that, and they did really good research about it, pissed off the university. The university ended up deciding, because it was this 50% iffy thing, and most athletes don't have that kind of contact with the ground, they decided to put in 2 artificial fields and 1 natural field. They kind of split the baby, you might say. It cost them a lot of money to halt the construction and to change things up that way, but it was the Seahawk that really initiated that. So I think anytime, when you're doing journalism especially, anytime you're working in the public interest, that's really what it's all about. And then we have groups like TLTV and Atlantis that are doing creative things. And it's always a lot of fun to see what they come up with, and sometimes they're hilarious.
Yes, sir. And what would you like to see in the future for student journalism?
Wow. Well, when I was new here, I helped bring in the journalism minor. I would love to see that progress into something maybe someday as a journalism major, and really bring in some more students who are really interested in journalism and asserting themselves as journalists, and also to get the sort of the curriculum more robust and stronger so that we can teach them the skills necessary. But really just to extend what we're already doing, which is, again, holding powerful people accountable, entertaining people when we can, and being fair, accurate, and telling the truth.
Yes, sir. That was great. Thank you so much,
You're
Bill.
welcome.
Can you tell me a little bit more about SMB?
Okay, so I assume that means the Student Media Board.
Mm-hmm.
So Student Media has been around a long time. The Seahawk is 1 year younger than the university. It's celebrating its 75th anniversary this year. But for most of that time, they had no formal advising and no real structure. They fell under, their funding came out of student government, which in America is considered a conflict of interest. Our media in this country are independent of government.
Okay.
Whereas like in Europe, it might be different, where the government funds a lot of it. So now that creates a lot of conflict of interest, because whenever the Seahawk especially was interested in doing real journalism, they might upset some of the people in student government, and the student government people would threaten their funding. So in the mid-90s, we had a vice chancellor named Pat Leonard, who's now deceased, but she was an amazing vice chancellor. And she decided she had had enough of the conflict. So she put a task force together. One of the people on that task force is communication studies Dr. Bolduc. And he was one of the original founders of the media board. They did a task force study. They came up with some models. They adopted one, and they created the Student Media Board. So now these 3 or 4 media that I advise get their funding directly without any intervention from student government. It's the media board that allocates those funds. I'm an advisor to the board, so I'm non-voting. And the board is comprised of student representatives of the organizations, 1 or 2 students who represent the student body at large. They're not affiliated with the media organizations, and then some faculty and staff. Anybody who is a full member of the board, like Dave Purnell, in fact, is on the board now. He's a full voting member, and whereas I'm one of the big mouths, and I just get to advise without a vote.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so our primary role is advising, budget allocation, and just kind of riding herd, you might say. But otherwise, we don't get involved. We're also really charged with protecting the expression rights of the students. Okay. So we don't get involved with their content. We don't do any prior review, no prior restraint. We see their publications around the same time that the public sees it, unless they invite me in, and then I become, I put on my educator hat, and I advise more directly, like any instructor would. But other than that, I only evaluate it afterward. It's almost like a sports metaphor where, as a coach, I train and I cajole and I advise before the game, but once the team is on the field, the game belongs to them. And then after the game, we reevaluate and do it all over again.
Gotcha. Yes, sir. Well, this interview's been great.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Bill. And back to you, Emily. Thank you.
Thanks, Dylan. The Student Media Board guides student journalists in their respective areas and aims to provide students the skills to thrive in their future careers by giving them hands-on experience. This campus newspaper, The Seahawk, covers stories that ranges from studying abroad opportunities to keeping up with sports programs to more serious topics involving human trafficking. Beginning in 1999, TLTV posts bi-weekly and focuses on Seahawk Central news, sketch comedy, and more. They interview athletes, UNCW faculty, and students to cover stories of interest to UNCW students. Atlantis Creative Magazine was founded in 1971 and is UNCW's oldest creative magazine. They publish photography, art, nonfiction, fiction, and poetry. They accept submissions from undergraduate and graduate students enrolled in any public or private 4-year university or community college in North Carolina. Atlantis publishes 3 times a year, the summer, fall, and spring. Besides student media, the SMB is mostly composed of students along with faculty, university staff, and non-voting advisors. The SMB meets monthly in the fall and twice monthly in the spring. Meetings are open to the public unless closed for personal matters. For more information, or if you're interested in joining an organization, you can email or call Bill DiNome using the information listed below. Now back to Dylan and Bill with today's game.
Thanks, Emily. Now it's time to play a game. Welcome to Truth or Trickery. Bill, we will give you a headline of a news article, and you will have to decide if it's real or fake. Now, let's get into it.
Okay.
Americans explain how they are ignoring the Israel-Hamas war.
Americans explain how they're ignoring the Israel-Hamas war. I'd say that's false. That's fake.
Well,
Do I need to explain why?
Oh, you can.
Because nobody's ignoring it.
Well, in that sense, you are correct. It is false. It is false. Partial federal government shutdown continues into its fourth week.
Well, since the shutdown hasn't happened yet, that's false. We're still looking for a Speaker of the House.
Unfortunately, that one will be true. That one will be true.
Okay.
Now I know why these PJs are on Oprah's favorite things list.
Okay, so I don't follow Oprah very carefully. I don't even know if she's still doing a favorites things list, so that could be true.
You are correct. That is true.
All right.
That is very true. Fun date ideas for you and your boo, according to a person with no expertise.
That sounds true. Yeah, this is the beauty of the internet.
That is true. A Kai Bowl restaurant headed to Wilmington Riverfront.
Wow, that could go either way. There's no real red flag in this one. Real estate on the riverfront is probably going to prevent a restaurant like that. So I'd say false.
It is true. We do have a new restaurant coming to the Wilmington Riverfront.
Okay, I'll have to look for it.
Tyreek Hill surprised to discover assault illegal in Florida.
That's false.
You are correct. That is false. And last but not least, Florida man found guilty of killing wife over her refusal to go on home renovation show.
I will never put anything past Florida man. So I might have to say true.
Unfortunately, this one is true.
Never doubt the power of Florida man.
Yeah, they're different breed in Florida. And that was Truth or Trickery. Bill, thank you so much for playing.
Thank you.
And back to Emily.
Well, that's all we have for today. Thank you to Bill for being our interviewee, and we'll see you all next time.